My name is Caleb Thomas, back with another Video Solutions interview. Today I'm sitting down here with Costa Upson of Dead Sea Choir. How are you doing, man?
Good, how's it going?
Doing great, man. I really thank you for being here today.
Sure.
I appreciate you taking the time to sit down and talk with me. So, what I'm really interested in finding out is a number of things. I want to find out how Dead Sea Choir came to be as a group. I want to know a little bit about your recording process, your tour run, and really where that's led you today. Because, from the outside looking in, you guys had a crazy run from like 2009 to like 2013-ish. Mm-hmm. Just from the outside looking in, I don't know the ins and outs of the band, of course, or what you guys go through. But, it's been quiet since then, at least on your timeline. I mean, the last post was many years ago at this point. So could you just tell me a bit about what you've been up to in the meantime since?
Sure. Dead Sea's kind of funny because for me it was just my first attempts at everything. Mm-hmm. First attempts at producing, writing, engineering, mixing, drums, guitar, keys, and singing. Like, this is weird because it's like a recorded first attempt. So to me, it's like, since then, I just was trying to basically just work on other stuff. And
solo work.
Side
projects.
I'm about to release a record in the summer, like spring, summer, with a band that I joined. And that's like what I would consider like the sophomore effort.
Okay. See, just stalking you guys online, doing my research, there was a second record teased. Not exactly teased, but promised. It's loading. It's on the way.
Totally.
And I wasn't sure what ever happened with that. I was starting to think you guys changed your name or something.
We might, or I might. I don't know. I'm kind of the only, one left, so to speak. So I don't know. I have a bunch of stuff that I intend to release eventually. I just don't know under what moniker or whatever. Like, I don't know if it'll be Dead Sea Choir. It feels kind of right to put that to bed because it feels like it was a thing. Maybe do something else, call it something else. But there's some of those songs at least I think will still one day come out. I just made some really long commitments, and they're about to come to fruition. I joined a Tulsa band called Combsy, and for like 2 years we've been writing and recording an album that we're going to release next year. And then after that, I'm going to kind of like recenter and try to see if we can put some of that stuff out.
Gotcha. Yeah, I had read that you recorded with Combsy down in Sonic Ranch Studios, correct? Mm-hmm. Down in it's like toward El Paso, correct?
Yeah, it's like 20 minutes outside of El Paso in Tornillo.
Okay.
Like right on the border. Amazing, kind of like a peak life experience type of environment.
It looked like a luxurious studio for real.
It is and it isn't. It doesn't come off like pretentious or expensive per se, but literally like all the walls are adorned in like fabric and art from all over the world. So at like closer glance, everything is ornate and catered.
So are you? Your experiences in the studio, are you engineering yourself? Do you have a guy for that, or do you use like the in-house engineers?
So we tend to be real DIY most of the time. I guess it's not my words, but a fellow studio rat once put it, if I'm going to be in the studio, then I'm just going to produce. There's no getting around it. Like, That's just kind of what I do. And I kind of even got any sort of engineering chops, like unwillingly, so to speak. Like I wasn't trying to be an engineer. I just kind of had to, get whatever I wanted out of the time that I had in the studio. Because I was basically, my early experiences were like vulturing midnight session time. Like, can I use the room when y'all are gone and asleep?
Yeah.
And then obviously there's no one else in there, so I just kind of had to figure it out, and in an era where there was no like, just look it up online, it was like, how do I even start?
Well, you've said it was a kind of like a feeble attempt or a first attempt, but for this one, the red one here, it's immaculately produced, man. The
Thanks.
mixing it's incredible. I seriously, I'm not just trying to kiss your ass here or anything. I really think it's like top notch as far as the production quality.
I appreciate, man. It was ambitious, and that was kind of the whole point of it. Was like every song was essentially an exercise in every direction to just see like where does stuff even go? How does this work? What is a song on an album? What is a track for?
Right.
And just trying to whatever. So I'm glad that some of that like reach comes through, I guess. I find it really hard to take compliments, so I'm doing my best.
Well, all right. I'll slow it down with the compliments.
Oh, you're good, man.
But so had you been self-recording for a long time before you actually like formed a group with Daniel and the rest?
You did your research, nice. Yeah, but not in any kind of like professional setting or anything. I didn't have like gear, so to speak of. It was always some sort of makeshift situation. Like I had like a mini disc recorder. I got one Christmas and I was like, oh my gosh, 12 or something, and just figured out how to multi-track onto it.
Yeah.
And would, basically like scrounge all the cables I needed to go into practice rooms, at like a piano practice room or whatever at school, and spend hours and hours and hours just trying to like figure out where mics go.
Right.
But really not knowing zero training whatsoever, just kind of like wandering around.
Never a bit. So, but you've picked up a lot, surely, from being in recording studios, like in those professional environments.
At this point, I'm accidentally a professional, producer and engineer for sure.
That's an incredibly like valuable skill, I think, because you can have the greatest body of work, greatest song or whatever, but if the mix isn't right, if it doesn't sound good across the board on all different like systems, then you're kind of out of luck.
You asked big questions at first, so apologies because they're kind of hard to answer, but we're getting to them. I guess what I've been doing the last like few years, the hiatus, has been sort of like preparing for the next thing, because I didn't feel ready to like make another push to mix or engineer. I didn't feel like I had those chops, you know what I mean?
Right.
But I kind of do now, so it's like.
So it's going to be exciting to.
I hope. Yeah.
Step back out.
I mean,
there,
it'll be exciting. Yes. For
so
sure.
When was the last the last show that Dead Sea actually?
Dang, that's a good question.
Was it in 2013, or are we talking past then?
I think it was. I actually think it was on a Sunday in Tulsa.
Okay.
And there was a band from Oklahoma City. I want to say they were called Defining Times.
Mm-hmm.
Our friends like Chase Kirby and engineer buddy of mine who plays bass with them. Michael Trepagnier. Gosh, I can't remember. I think that was the last show, yeah.
Okay.
And it would have been a long time ago.
So for you, when you're in the studio, what comes first? Are we talking instrumentals first? Is that like the lyrics? What comes to mind before anything else? And, is it a more like collaborative effort, or is it really just you coming in with the ideas, or was it?
It was me coming with the ideas, and really not even learning until honestly much later. how to like collaborate
Right.
and like what that really was. I was, really over serious and burdened with trying to figure out what, whatever it was I was trying to do. And so I had a full plate, as it were. But I would say that the current project I'm in is wildly collaborative. Everyone kind of has like free reign to. I'm allowed to produce and engineer and frontman and write the lyrics and do everything that I just be full me, and so is everyone else. And that actually, like, it feels like, oh, that's a real collaboration when everyone's just allowed to be exactly who they are. It's like, that's nice.
Certainly. I bet you appreciate that kind of creative freedom in there.
Yeah, it's like everything now. It's like,
So, which came first? Was it the record and like? Okay, so let me rephrase. How did you hook up with Brass Ltd?
We are.
Okay.
That's me.
No, that's your label.
Yeah, me and a buddy,
Okay.
we were just like, we needed a thing. And so,
Got it.
So we made a thing.
Okay, I wasn't sure if it was like distributed through like an outside label, or
I
if
can't
it
even
was-
remember now what the. No, we didn't have outside distribution or anything. We just did it on our own.
Got it.
Yeah, I mean, you ask what my process in the studio is. I'm sorry I give roundabout answers, but honestly, it's just whatever I can get. Like, any way in is a way I'll use, to get into a song. So a lot of times it's just purely random.
Got it.
What the inspiration is.
Well, because I know some artists tend to
But
get in a.
drums.
Okay. So you play keyboard, guitar, drums. Do you do all of the above, or are you mainly just a vocalist? Or
Yeah, I would say I'm actually mainly just a vocalist, and I kind of have a, producer's understanding of keyboard and drums and stuff, but I don't have any chops to speak of myself at all. So I'm like highly conceptual as an artist in the studio, and definitely, love collaborating for that reason too, because I just don't. It's nice to not have to do everything.
So when you're collaborating with, in the past with Dead Sea, now with Combsy, are they just leaving all the mastery up to you, like after, or, post recording?
I mean, there was a time with Dead Sea where I was for sure just kind of leading the charge, and playing with great people and great musicians. It wasn't really until like recent endeavors, especially Combsy, where I'm in a band where I'm not the Papa Daddy.
Right.
These guys are wild. Like literally my favorite musicians. And I'm like performance-wise, the runt of the pack, no doubt. Like big time.
How many tours have you done with them?
Well, I toured for like a year and a half with Broncho, which is a band out of Tulsa.
Okay.
And I just ran sound for them. And kind of got my tour experience that way.
Yeah. Along for the ride, still helping out in a way.
I mean, running sound it's a lot of work.
I bet.
But yeah, it is just a little cog in the machine or whatever. Dead Sea didn't do a ton of touring. That was kind of the whole thing, is I didn't want to. I didn't want to be a professional driver. And that's kind of what it was at the time. Maybe still, but at the time at least it was just, all right, you get in a van and you drive 12 hours and they let you play for 40 minutes every day.
Yeah.
And they do it again. It's like, oh,
Well,
that was brutal.
See, that's one of the main things I had been wondering about, just as a fan. Like, was it that you guys didn't jive as like bandmates? Because people say that it's kind of like running a family or a marriage or something, being in a band. I wasn't sure if life just got in the way. People had to find other means to pay the bills or something, or or what?
It was kind of like, well, if I'm going to do this for real, then we're going to put the practice stuff aside and I'm going to get to like work. And then when I'm done working and like feeling like I can make again, then I'll get back to making, which is what I've been doing the last couple of years. So that has been the sort of driving force. It really hasn't ever been a relationship-based thing. You know what I mean? Like, the music never like came out of the relationships per se, which sounds like a cold thing to say. Like, we were really like, we're talking best friends here, but that's just not where the music came from. The music was coming from me, and so it was just, you know, it was a lot of like me sitting down and being like, this goes like this, and then this goes like this, and then this goes like this, and doing really bad versions of it, and then handing it and being like, can you please play really good?
But the way I want, yeah.
Yeah. And like you said, yeah, you know, it can definitely be like running a family, sort of. And I learned probably some late bloomer lessons about like collaborating, and like with drums especially. I was, you know, I was always trying to get a drummer to do stuff that they weren't necessarily geared towards doing or wanting to do even. And because I just thought I like write open-handed and think open-handed, I guess. And also when you like program beats, like that doesn't necessarily translate to an actual drum set. Mm-hmm. So all the time they'd be like, I can't,
Yeah,
like, or I don't want to, but like, can I just play drums? You know, like, okay, I get it.
In a DAW or something, you end up with drums that have less of like a human feel.
Right, sure.
So, well, so with your guys' run, you know, what was it ever like a decided thing? You say you're the only one left, really, and that you're kind of putting that to bed, or have. Was it an agreed upon thing, or did people just kind of have a falling out?
There's no falling out. It's just was, again, not trying to sound cold or anything, but it's just kind of always been up to me.
Okay. They didn't like share the same vision really as you think?
Well, to be fair, I wasn't trying to take a band on the road, so, you know, there was no like future per se to play the game the way the game was being played at the time. And so we were like, all right, well, if we're going to continue to be creative people, it'll just be in different avenues and stuff. And it all just kind of made sense, actually. It's like, wasn't even a decision. I don't remember ever having a conversation with anyone about like, last show.
Yeah.
It was just like, okay, cool, like, I'm doing this now, and we'll get back to that stuff. You know, the songs still exist for me. As long as I'm around, Dead Sea's a thing, honestly. So,
well said.
I just don't know if it'll be under another name or what. And it doesn't really matter, you know.
Sure.
But, or that's what I tell myself so that I can not be beleaguered with coming up with another fucking band name, because that's the worst.
Yeah. Well, you toured outside of the 4 states, correct? Like with Dead Sea, or was that more like a local thing?
Yeah. We toured. I mean, we didn't play coastal at all. It was all like Midwest.
Like, you went as far as like Austin, correct? Or
yeah, and like actually, really, is it McAllen? That's like crazy south. We were playing with a band called Dignan, who I think is from either McAllen or Denton or something, but I remember them being from very southern Texas. So yeah, and like I think like Louisiana or something, not very Kansas, you know, the region.
do you have like a favorite memory being on the road with them, or not exactly a favorite memory, but like a favorite show rather? Was there one where you just feel like you just nailed it? Like,
not on the road ever.
I saw it in a previous interview you did, I think at the Norman Festival back in like 2010. You said some of your guys' stuff is difficult to like replicate live. So
It was at the time.
Okay.
Because you had to play everything. Mm-hmm. Literally, there was no even the loop station situation. No matter how much money you had, was a pain in the ass and very like analog. You had to like hit it right or you were screwed, you know. It was just risky to recreate a lot of that stuff. We were kind of like well, we weren't like hadn't been, you know, using Ableton and stuff. We were just very instrumental, as it were. So that's kind of what it was, is we were trying to be two different things at once, essentially. And it didn't, that like synthetic like bridge wasn't working because of that, because we didn't get it, because I didn't get it. I didn't understand what the problem was, but now I do.
So you think it's like more of a technological type of problem? Because you got to think, I mean, this was
More
the
of like
2010s.
it was kind of a philosophical problem, honestly. It was more like, it sounds like corporate talk, but projects versus product mindset, because it is corporate talk. But it was, well, what's the goal here? Instead of, well, what's the next step? And thinking that the process matters, because it doesn't. It doesn't matter. It literally, you know, as soon as someone hears something, they don't know what the process was. They can guess. And, you know, a lot of like professionals or whatever will pick up on things. They'll be like, oh, I can like hear Ableton in there for sure, or whatever.
Hear
But
Ableton. I've never heard it put that way.
it's got a sound. I remember listening to like early Flying Lotus and being like, I recognize Ableton.
Oh,
It's totally Ableton,
You're a Flylo fan.
for sure.
Dude, he's one of my all-time I actually embarrassingly have a Brain
Oh,
Feeder
shit.
tattoo.
Oh yeah, dude, that's cool. Yeah, since that Los Angeles EP,
Dude, yeah.
Parisian Goldfish. It's one of my favorite tracks off that. Yeah, I've never seen him, you know, do his thing live. But have you? I take it.
Yeah. Back in I think 2019 was Flamagra tour. They had a date in OKC,
Oh, sweet.
and the friend of mine who actually turned me on to Dead Sea stuff, he came along. It was one of like the greatest experiences. It was a 3D show. Everyone had the glasses on and everything.
Dang, sweet.
It was great.
That sounds fun.
So what's kept you in the Tulsa area? Like,
Friends and fam.
yeah, this is just home, pretty much.
Yeah, just deep roots, and it would just be, you know, being on the road. It was kind of funny. The places you think you want to live don't turn out to be the places you really want to live, and vice versa. Like Minneapolis is awesome. I could live there. Oakland, strangely. Actually, those are kind of like sister cities in my mind. And they're both sister cities or whatever. But, you know, what's for me there?
Yeah, no, I understand. If you have like connections here, family here, history here, it's hard to leave. I bet.
Tulsa's cool. It's cheap. It's easy
Yeah.
to live. It's easy to, you can be at your own pace. You can bust ass or chill and, you know, be comfy.
So you're working with Combsy. You've got solo material stashed away. Yes,
I suppose.
You suppose?
I mean, it still exists on hard drives. It exists until it doesn't. So,
Right.
Yep, still around.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but you're doing like collaboration with something to do with In Rainbows, right?
Oh, we did. I like just to, you know, because I get antsy, and didn't love performing, but like every once in a while that bug would come back, and so every couple years for the last like 6 years, I guess, we put on like a big show at a spot in Tulsa where we pick an album and we play it for like front to back.
Okay.
So 2019 we did In Rainbows front to back. 2 years before that was Daft Punk Discovery.
Oh, sweet. Wow, that's not what I'd expect.
Right. It was a big left turn because 2 years prior to that was OK Computer.
Nice. And were you the vocalist for these as well? Perfect. You know, In Rainbows is another one of my like all-time favorites.
Yeah, that was like it came out at the right time for me too. It was 2007, I think.
Yeah, no, it was.
And yeah, I was in the studio Uh, I remember actually inviting the band to the studio because I was working on stuff, and I popped on Reckoner, and they were like in the tracking room writing parts to it because they thought it was us. Wow. Like, you guys, I put your instruments down, shut the fuck up, and come in here and listen to this. Isn't us.
I don't know how you'd feel about this comparison, but initially hearing Dead Sea stuff and like really actively listening, my friend had showed me like Image D93 a year plus ago, but I didn't really start like going through the record and a few of your other like releases till fairly recently. How do you feel about like your stuff being compared to Radiohead? Have you ever heard that before?
Yeah,
because that was immediately the comparison I drew.
Well, that's I didn't have like vocal training or lessons or anything, but so it was just me recording myself at home as a kid and just comparing it to the voice or whatever. I mean, I grew up playing, learning music through jazz, through school. And so a lot of that jazz is, essentially mimicry, where you're like, Charlie Parker played it like this, now play it like this.
Yeah.
Etc. And so that's definitely a part of my early vocabulary is, his entire, everything, he's got. Just learning like the physicality of what's going on. But I gotta say the same with like Bjork and Bono and the Stereophonics dude. Like just a bunch of singers I kind of went after to try to figure things out. And definitely hadn't really figured out, didn't have what I would consider a vocal identity at the time. Was definitely like my first attempts at that for sure. But it took me a while before I was like, oh, that's me. Okay.
And how old are you now?
36.
36. So you recorded this one, the red one.
Thin one, the red one. Sorry.
Or I'm sorry. Or what did I say?
This one, the red
one.
Or
my bad.
It's
I apologize. No. It's just a slip of the tongue.
No, we should have gone with that.
Thin. Okay. My bad.
You're good.
Anyways, so you recorded that. Started what? When you were 23, 24, something like that.
Well, some of the songs were just lying around since 18, but like maybe 2. As like musical ideas, like charismatic, like
from 18 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Just keyboard stuff. You know what I mean? Like things that just kept coming back or whatever. That's kind of where it came. And they're not really, some of these. I don't know if any of them are songs. They're they're really arrangement crazy.
Were they kind of like sporadically recorded? Like was it sort of all over the place? Because the way you are kind of describing it is like it was keyboard stuff, it was an idea here, an idea there, or were you like crafting these songs one by one?
I wanted it all, and yes. It felt like crafting. I realized, later a lot of it was just like chasing my own tail and wasting time and not really making decisions, but yeah, I was trying to have it all in the sense of like, I wanted every song to be its own little universe, and I was trying to universe build through detail, but also have like some sort of like loose arc. I didn't really get there, I don't think, in terms of like pulling it off, but I tried to like connect things in some way.
What do you feel like is the high point on this record, if you were to pick one?
Like, oh man, like what can I listen to?
Just to refresh the memory.
It's even around. Yeah, I mean, you said it. The one that comes up a bunch for people, I think, is Image C93, just because it's like specific.
Personally, my favorites, Old Man Winter, 230, The Ceiling.
Very nice. You like the dark ones.
Oh, are those the dark ones? The synth chords are like just euphoric on 230. Because I feel like when you listen to a record for the first time, there has to be like that one little earworm bit that like makes you want to go back to it, And for you guys listening to this record, that's the moment I was like, oh, hell yeah, and it makes you more interested to like hear the rest. I feel like.
That's awesome. I really wanted 230 to be this like peak of the mountain when it came to the like album journey terrain or whatever. But yeah, I don't know. It goes pretty off. It feels unfinished to me. But that's I felt like that was punk rock at the time, so I kind of like left it like that. You know what I mean? Because it sort of destroys itself and recreates like 4 times.
Mm-hmm.
And it's 11 minutes or whatever. Yeah, it's way too long.
Are you over making like 12-minute songs?
I've heard Paul Thomas Anderson talk about Magnolia and how overlong it is, and I'm like, I understand what you mean. It's great, dude. It's great, but it's long. I have guilt about that track. That
Oh, come on. Don't beat yourself up. It's great. So, while you were recording, was some of this stuff, I may not have fully understood you earlier, like some of it was thought out through like a DAW and then recreated live, or did I kind of misunderstand you there?
No, we were just, we hadn't gotten there. We weren't, I don't know if Ableton was there yet, really, but we weren't there on a tech level. So we were just trying to recreate studio stuff live, which a lot of times was just random destroyed deconstructions where it's no way to trace back, like, wait, how did we, I had no idea, like, how that sound got made. It's just there now. And
I have the same problem using Ableton. There's certain perfect little configurations of like a kick or something, just
right.
Whatever, that I like. I'm like, I want to use that again, but I didn't save the set, so it's just lost forever. I'll never recreate it.
Yeah, and you sit there, and I have things like that where I'm still trying to like recreate them. Every once in a while I'll put it up and like try to like match the synth and like get that, and I'm like, dang, that's close, but that's not it. Like, what's the missing thing? But
do you spend much free time like working in DAWs, or are you usually?
Yeah, I mean, there's a studio in Tulsa called the Church Studio that was owned by Leon Russell, and I was the primary engineer there for a few years in like the 2010s or whatever. And so I'm definitely always in a lab somewhere. I've got a little homework set up at home, or homework studio, where I can just make sounds and whatever.
So is music more of a lifestyle to you instead of a thing where you punch in and just go to the studio, get it done, and then forget about it? It's more of a lifestyle.
There's no punch out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If that's what it is, then I've never punched out. It doesn't feel like you just always have to be on. And it sounds like, I don't mean to sound like, well, it's hard being an artist, because it's really not. It's just what you make of it, And yeah, it's definitely a lifestyle in terms of the practical shit. You just got to work really hard to be able to be an artist sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's like a constant effort, basically.
It seems like you have a calm approach to music in general.
Eventually,
you don't seem, at least from my perspective, like you're stressing out about it too much. Or do you find it kind of consuming? Like
I've just, I used to, for sure, like stress out
while recording this.
Oh my gosh, while recording anything, because I worked on other albums and stuff, and produced and engineered a bunch, and yeah, so I was always stressed out and really kind of like burdened both by my own limitations and the reality of my limitations, and me ignoring the reality of my limitations. So yeah, I needed to I did some foundational work, basically, like engineering stuff that I just, like gaps I had, where I was like, oh, man, I need to fill this. I've got all the philosophical, let's get some chops going.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah.
I'm
more calm because I can be, you know what I mean?
Yeah, you have better understanding of what you're doing in there.
Totally.
Was there a particular track on Thin One, the red one, that was like a particular bear to like get recorded?
Yeah. It's hard.
Or was it
it's
the
hard
whole
to say.
thing?
It's hard to say that there was an easy one. I suppose if the Abyss came together really quick to answer the reverse questions. Sorry, but what was the big bear? Yeah, it'd be in the first third here, because I thought these had a shot, or some of those. I thought like Move It Child, Image, Drippo maybe, just had their like kind of cool things about them. And so I, spent forever working on them, making tiny adjustments that probably didn't matter.
Mm-hmm. I've heard that a lot from different artists. So do you think every track on this project in particular tells its own story, or do you think the record as a whole has a narrative?
I don't think those things have to live separate of each other. I hope both,
Yeah.
but it is just kind of up to you. To me, they do, but I don't think that should matter to anybody, or maybe it should. I have no idea. Either way, for sure, each song is a thing. In terms of like, they're all different things. Some of them are like more photographic. Some of them are completely made up. Some of them are like mirror images of other art concepts. It's just all over the place. But generally, I would say that there's like a sort of yearning spirit behind the whole thing.
Do you think that your writing style has changed at all over the years?
For sure. Yeah.
More focused.
I mean,
more,
if you really want it to be, for
Mm-hmm.
sure. You don't. I mean, even if you strike gold early on, I would think you would want to like be pushing yourself and still figuring out different ways to do things. Yeah. So I'm always, at least just for that alone, trying to figure out different ways to approach, basically. What's a new way in, and vector collect. But now I don't really even like, and this is going to sound so, maybe there's a less pompous way to say this, but I don't feel like I even write songs anymore. They just, you just get to work,
Mm-hmm.
and you know what to do, kind of.
Well, that seems like it would almost be easier than having like a rigid outline for a song that you have to somehow fit over an instrumental. If you're just going in there and going with whatever comes to you, that almost seems easier.
I like borrowing from other forms of expression, and you look at like graffiti or stenciling, and it's like there's a very rigid thing that gets laid on top and then removed. You don't have to like a rigid format can just be like a design element temporarily, and then you can just use it like a pedal, like anything else. It's just like a thing that has a function. So like even like time is like can be an element, like the movie Boyhood. You can use time as part of the art. It doesn't have to just be like the thing that is working against you. And that's kind of how I try to like look at all that stuff is, any way that you can basically find some truth and then make it hurt or set you free or have impact, or you know what I mean, build a bridge to somebody.
Is music a part of your like daily life as far as the creative aspect, or
Probably to a funny degree. I try to keep it real, so I run sound at a venue every night. Literally like 7 days a week.
which venue?
Mercury Lounge.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm hearing live music and mixing it actively every night, and I'm in the studio,
And you're just taking notes for yourself.
For sure. It'd be silly if you didn't.
Yeah.
Because there's just a lot of like raw talent in Tulsa, which is crazy to think, on a national level, but Tulsa's wild when it comes to musical talent alone. Not a ton of leadership and vision or industry to speak of, but a lot of talent.
I hear the same thing about Kansas City. That's kind of
Yeah, it might be our
the
Midwestern
same feel.
flair. Yeah.
Some producers and stuff that I've watched interviews with and things like that from KC. They say like there's so much raw talent here. There's just not the scene really to like keep the ball rolling, I suppose, to like put it on the map as like a place where it breeds talent.
And a place where artists can thrive.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah, part of what makes being an artist a lifestyle for me is all that practical stuff of just like living in Tulsa and like you got to do some work so that you can do other work, basically.
Mm-hmm. And that's with almost any art form. I
Right.
feel like sometimes
Totally.
you have to not do what you don't want to do, but you have to. It's kind of like a famous quote. You have to do what you have to do so you can do what you want to do.
Right.
In a way.
If you're smart, you'll align what you have to do with what you need to, so that you can just like learn uniformly at the same thing, which is what I've at least tried to do, is like keep the work in music instead of something else.
Certainly.
Sometimes I drive in silence,
It's where you can get some of the best thinking done, driving in silence, or at least I can. I don't know if you're the same way.
There are times I just like forget. There are times where the music's still on, and I'm not. It doesn't feel like I'm driving in silence. It's just the radio's off. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And my radio's loud, so yeah.
What do you like? What do you spend a lot of time listening to?
I got a bunch of DJ friends. I say a bunch. I've got like 2 friends who put me on to house and random bangers. I listen to a lot of like French house, Ed Banger stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, and same with like Berlin house, and then just completely random. I think
It's honestly not what I expected.
it's almost exclusively electronic music, really. It's a lot of John Hopkins. It's a lot of like just I don't know. I'm looking for like sonic auteur. I'm looking to get spanked. I'm looking for lessons. You know what I mean? I want to hear like new things, and you're typically not finding that out of an acoustic guitar.
Yeah.
Now, when I want to learn new things about songwriting, that's where I'm going, straight there.
Of course.
But
So, who are some of the go-to artists from those sort of genres?
you don't have to go outside of Tulsa, to find like crazy good songwriters.
All right.
Honestly. So, and I really don't. That's kind of like where that's my bread and butter when it comes to where I'm learning that stuff, if I'm being honest. So yeah, I listen to a ton of electronic stuff.
If you could put Dead Sea and what you guys were able to pull off together, if you could put that in a box, just hypothetically, if you could fit that into a genre, what do you think that would be?
Oh, that's my least favorite thing. Let's see, what would we call it?
I know you don't want to be put in a box as an artist, but I'm saying just if you had to, what would you call that?
A nightmare. I guess it would be called, and here's where you just have to be pithy about this, I suppose. Overly ambitious experimental art rock.
All right. I've used the term art rock around people before, and they're like, "What is art rock?" And I was like, "It's
not a thing.
It's a loose, thin term. Can be."
Yeah. I don't know. It was. Honestly, like it was trying to be a lot of different things, so it's hard to say that it is any one thing, even at its like.
No, that's understandable. I think calling it experimental is just fair.
Yeah, well, I think that's kind of what you would have to. If you were like assigned to categorize it, for like the library or something, I'd be like, okay, experimental.
with all the like mixing and mastering knowledge you have today, are there any things you like kick yourself about with this record in particular?
I don't really have any mastering knowledge, and maybe even any mixing knowledge to some degree. Maybe I'm being humble there, maybe not. But I definitely have regret. Just, this thing is.
I would not in any way, shape, or form call this like a regrettable in any way, just as a fan. But I get what you're saying. I'll hear you out.
I think there are just, I don't really hear like mistakes per se, and I don't really even think of like things like that as mistakes anymore, per se. What I
Learning
do is I
experiences?
see missed opportunities,
All right.
or I see like naive flair. There, there's just a lot of like youngisms going on.
All right.
And a lot of unnecessary flexing and silliness in that sense. If you have a good sense of humor about it, which is probably my main regret, if I actually think about it, is that it didn't reflect more of a sense of humor, and it wasn't more balanced in that way. It was just like, it was all pain and stuff. Or it seems like very trauma laden. So I didn't know that at the time, but that's you figure that stuff out later.
Mm-hmm. Is that are you trying to incorporate more of like a humorous like wit in your newer stuff?
I would just say balance is like
All right.
what I'm kind of like looking for.
Not
in
focusing so
general.
much on pain and trauma, as you say.
Well, I mean, I just think that the pain and the trauma and the humor and the wit is just kind of the same. It's just it's all the food goes to the same place. You know what I mean?
Yes.
It's like it's kind of the same soul. So just being a more measured, balanced human person on the record.
Yeah.
Because if art is being an artist is a lifestyle, then that goes all the way. That means that the art is your life.
Needs to reflect every like aspect
Yeah, you're like we said, like
instead of just a handful.
you don't get to punch out. You're just always doing it.
Right. Well, what can those who follow you expect to hear in the future?
Music.
Of course.
With me singing on it, probably, or maybe not.
Combsy collaborations for one.
For sure. I mean, I would say that's very much the main squeeze. That's all. I'm all in on Combsy world for sure. So that's going to get all my time and attention in terms of where I am, mentally. And then I hate saying the word promise or anything, but I'll be putting out some music. We just released the first track of a remix series that we're doing with some of our favorite artists. That first song is already out. Yeah, and hopefully some more collaborative stuff. I would love to work with a lot of artists.
Locally.
All over the place.
Okay. Have you ever kind of like stepped out of your chosen sort of genre? Like, you talk about your love for house music. You ever just dip your toe in that and just try to
Oh yeah,
replicate house stuff?
Oh yeah, because that's kind of that's part of the lab. Is honestly, that early way of learning kind of stuck with me in some ways, where part of music making or DAW endeavoring is just mimicry, where you're like, you hear a synth and you're like, okay, synth match.
Yeah.
And you just try to, or you hear an interval and you're like, okay, I know what that is. It's just that sort of thing. So, I'm not thinking about it in terms of like, okay, I'm gonna go after a genre.
Yeah.
But I do look at it like, okay, now I'm gonna go after that sound, whatever that sound is, and a lot of times it's just like random genres.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it could be a glitch hop track or some, I'm just like, that snare is wild. How are they doing that? Part of me wants to just release some little house EP or something like that. Just for me.
Be amazing.
Because I think it'd be fun to just. I love like the minimal approach to beat making and kind of that early French aesthetic. It's just I can listen to that for forever, just on repeat.
Is there anything you really wanted to touch on in this conversation that we haven't got to?
That's a good question. I didn't really come in with an agenda. I didn't know where we were coming from or headed or anything. I was just kind of I haven't done a interview in a minute, so I was just kind of curious.
Yeah.
What you were going to be aware of, or if this was for Combsy. I had no idea. You know what I mean? Like I didn't know.
I'll have to look into Combsy for sure. I'm interested to hear what you guys have been cooking up, but no, I haven't actually listened to any of their material.
I would say if you like Dead Sea at all, and I don't mean to just be pitching stuff here, but this is the best case scenario for me making music. I think we're really proud of this stuff and worked really hard on it. So I think we actually might have, something that maybe I can listen to without so much regret.
Yeah.
10 years from now or whatever. Yeah, man, not really. I didn't really walk in with an agenda.
No, I understand. Well, with all your qualms with this record,
I don't mean to come off like I hate the thing. Like, I actually like, and that's probably what I'm most misunderstood for. Is like I'm not like embarrassed of this, or
no, you shouldn't be.
I just get what it is.
Yeah,
and I have a lot of like really good memories associated with it.
I was just going to say that I think it's a pretty immaculate first attempt, as you put it, and this thing has shelf life for sure.
That's very kind of you. Thank you.
Well, this has been another Video Solutions interview. Costa Upson, everybody. I appreciate it. Thank you, man.
Thanks. Yeah. Cheers, dude.